Hello to everyone. We cordially invite you to the first webinar. Today, we'll be focusing on Your House, the Outside View, a book written by John Breisman and published in the year 1974. Today's agenda will be divided into three sections, in which part 1 will be Your House, an Outside View, the evolution of housing. Part 2, the group activity or individual activity, in which you will be evaluating your own home. Engaging with the challenge and creating a mood board will be the part 3. We now know a bit of information about the evolution of houses. The first terraced housing had been introduced in the late 17th century, and the first apartments, known then as garden flats, emerged in the 1860s, just before house building entered a boom period. Between 1870 and the outbreak of World War I in 1914, nearly 5 million homes were built in the UK. Your home is your castle, so the saying goes, and there's no doubt that Britain has a rich architectural history. Houses here range in style from thatched Tudor cottages right through today's new built eco friendly homes. We have charted the ever evolving architectural styles of British homes since the 1700s via a series of illustrations which depict how British homes have changed over more than 300 years. Enjoy this short video from the Atlantic that shows the evolution of houses since 25,000 BC. Now, we will concentrate on 7 different housing periods such as Georgian townhouse, early Victorian townhouse, late Victorian terraced house, Edwardian terraced house, Art Deco house, post-war prefab housing, and modern housing. When it comes to house types, we start with Georgian housing. Georgian townhouses were typically constructed in rows with a uniform facade creating a grand and imposing streetscape. They were built for wealthy merchants, aristocrats, and other members of the upper classes. The layout of these houses typically consisted of a basement level, a ground floor with a grand entrance, and 2 or 3 upper levels. Georgian townhouses are known for their symmetrical design and simple, elegant details. They often feature a central front door with a fan light or a side light, decorative iron railings, and ornate door cases. The interior of these homes often includes high ceilings, intricate plasterwork, and large fireplaces. These type of houses were typically constructed using brick, which was often covered with stucco or painted white to give the appearance of stone. The use of large sash windows allowed for more natural light in the interior of the house. Georgian townhouses typically had a hipped roof with a shallow pitch, often hidden behind a parapet. These type of houses typically had large sash windows with small panes of glass, often separated by glazing bars. The front doors were typically made of solid wood and often featured a fanlight or side lights. We now talk about early Victorian townhouses. Early Victorian townhouses were built in the mid 19th century during the reign of Queen Victoria from 1837 to 1861. Early Victorian townhouses were built during the time of the Industrial Revolution, which made cast iron more widely available and affordable, allowing for the use of decorative cast iron elements in the design. The houses were also built during a time of increasing wealth and prosperity, and many were constructed to impress and display the status of their owners. These type of houses were typically symmetrical in design with a central entrance and evenly spaced windows. They often had a basement level, a raised ground floor, and two or three upper floors. The houses were built with large spacious rooms and high ceilings, and many feature ornate plasterworks, elaborate cornices, and ceiling roses. The facades of early Victorian townhouses were typically made of brick or stucco, while the roof was often made of slate. Cast iron was commonly used for decorative elements such as railings, balconies, and columns. Early Victorian townhouses often had a pitched roof with a decorative parapet. The roof line was usually simple and unadorned with little or no decoration. The front doors of early Victorian townhouses were typically made of solid wood and featured decorative panels and glass. The windows were often tall and narrow with sash frames and multiple panes of glass. The late Victorian period generally refers to the period between the 1860s and 1900, and during this time, terrace houses became increasingly popular in the UK as a type of housing for the growing urban population. Here are some possible characteristics of a late Victorian terraced house. The late Victorian period was marked by a boom in industrialization and urbanization, which led to the development of new building techniques and materials, as well as social and cultural changes that impacted the design and function of domestic architecture. Late Victorian terrace houses were often built in rows of identical or similar houses with a uniform facade and sharp party wall between adjacent houses. The houses typically had two or three stories, with the ground floor used for living and dining rooms and the upper floors used for bedrooms. Some late Victorian terrace houses might also have had a basement or an attic. Brick was the most common building material for late Victorian terrace houses, although some houses may have used stone or stucco for decoration. Roofs were typically made of slate or tiles. Late Victorian terrace houses often had a pitched roof with a gable end facing the street. The roof might be decorated with terracotta ridge tiles or other ornamental features, such as dormer windows. Late Victorian terrace houses often had a distinctive front door with panels of stained or etched glass and a fanlight or transom window above the door. Windows were typically tall and narrow with sash frames and decorative moldings. Bay windows were also a common feature, especially on the ground floor, which projected outwards and provided additional light and space. We then look into Edwardian terraced houses. The Edwardian period refers to the time between 1901 and 1910, when Edward VII was the King of the United Kingdom. Edwardian terrace houses share some similarities with late Victorian terrace houses but also have some distinct features. The Edwardian period was a time of reflective peace and prosperity, and this was reflected in the architecture of the time. Edwardian terrace houses were often larger and more spacious than the Victorian counterparts and were designed to accommodate the growing middle class and their changing lifestyles. Edwardian terrace houses were often wider and deeper than their Victorian counterparts, with larger rooms and higher ceilings. There was also an emphasis on light and space, with features such as bay windows, oriel windows, and glazed doors that opened onto the garden. The houses often had a separate reception room and dining room, as well as a kitchen and scullery on the ground floor, and multiple bedrooms and bathrooms on the upper floors. There might also be a cellar or a loft. Brick was still the most common building material for Edwardian terrace houses, although there was a greater use of decorative stonework and terracotta. Roofs were typically made of slate or tiles, but there was also an increased use of flat roofs with parapet walls. Edwardian terrace houses often had a more varied roofline than late Victorian terrace houses. The roofs might have a combination of hipped, gable, and flat sections, and there might be decorative features such as finials or chimneys. Edwardian terrace houses often had a more decorative front door than late Victorian terrace houses with stained glass or leaded glass panels and ornamental ironmongery. Windows were often wider than those in Victorian houses with sash frames and decorative mouldings, and there might be a bay window or an oriel window on the ground floor. Overall, Edwardian terrace houses represent a continuation of the trend towards larger and more comfortable middle class housing that began in the Victorian era. They were designed to provide more space and light and to incorporate new technologies and conveniences such as electricity, indoor plumbing, and central heating. The architecture of Edwardian terrace houses reflects the changing social and cultural values of the time and is an important part of the history of domestic architecture in the UK.
Now, moving on with the evolution of houses, we are going to look at Art Deco houses. They were typically built between 1920s to 1930s. Art Deco was a popular style of architecture and design that emphasized luxury, glamour, and modernity. These kinds of houses often feature bold geometric shapes and streamlined forms. They also had stylized motifs and decorative elements such as zigzags, chevrons, and sunbursts. They were commonly constructed with materials such as stucco, concrete, and glass, and often featured ornamental details made of materials like marble, bronze, and stainless steel. They often had flat roofs or low pitched roofs with parapets. Art Deco houses typically have simple geometric front doors and glass panels with geometric shapes allowing natural light to enter the interior of the house. The curved windows are a hallmark of Art Deco architecture. They are typically large with a smooth flowing shape that contrasts with the straight geometric lines of the building's facade. The curved shape of the windows may also provide additional natural light and panoramic views of the surroundings. They were typically made from materials such as glass, steel, or aluminium. The frames may be painted in bold colors such as black, white, or metallic silver to complement the building's overall design. Overall, the doors and windows of Art Deco houses are an important component of the overall design and often feature geometric shapes, intricate detailing, and modern materials. They contribute to the overall modern and streamlined aesthetic of the Art Deco style. Today, many Art Deco houses have been preserved and restored. They continue to be admired for their distinctive style and unique character. Next are the post war prefab houses. These were built in the United Kingdom between 1945 and the early 1960s to address the severe shortage of housing after World War II. Post war prefab houses were prefabricated in factories and then transported to their sites for assembly. They were designed to be temporary housing solutions, but many have survived and continue to be used today. These were designed with efficiency in mind and often featured compact layouts with multipurpose rooms. They also had distinctive features such as internal panel walls and linoleum flooring. The construction of the post war prefab houses relied on the materials that were readily available after war, including asbestos cement sheeting for walls and flat roofs, and steel or timber frames. The picture shown is of the all-lit prefab houses in York, which were made of reinforced concrete panels which were reinforced with steel mesh and wire. The panels were manufactured in a factory and then transported to the building site where they were assembled into a complete house. The roofs of the post war prefab house were typically flat and made up of corrugated asbestos cement sheeting. Some models had a slightly pitched roof to allow for drainage. They had simple, functional front doors, usually made of metal or wood. Windows were typically small and placed high up on the walls to provide privacy and security. They were often made of metal or wood with simple frames and no decorative features. Overall, the Orlet prefab houses were a significant development in the history of UK housing, representing a pragmatic solution to the housing crisis in the post war period. While they were built quickly and cheaply, they were also represented a shift towards more modern, energy efficient housing that incorporated new technologies and materials. Today, many Orlit houses or prefab houses in general have been refurbished and modernized and are still popular with the homeowners who appreciate their unique history and character. Finally, we are going to talk about modern housing. Mainly, we will be focusing on the time periods between 1960s to present day. Modern housing designs are typically characterized by their simple, clean lines, minimal ornamentation, and emphasis on functionality and practicality. Many of them prioritize sustainability and energy efficiency. Modern homes often have open floor plans, large windows that allow natural light to flood the interior, and a seamless integration of outdoor and indoor living spaces. They can also feature unique and unconventional shapes such as triangular or circular designs. Modern homes are generally built with a variety of materials including concrete, glass, steel, and wood. Many of them also incorporate sustainable materials such as bamboo, recycled steel, and reclaimed wood. The roofs of the modern homes vary widely from flat roofs to sloping roofs with steep angles. Roof materials can range from metal to asphalt shingles to even green roofs. The doors and windows of modern homes are typically large and made of energy efficient materials such as double glazed glass. They also often feature sliding glass doors that connect interior living spaces to outdoor patios and decks. We hope that the evolution explained has given all of you an understanding of how much homes have evolved over the years. Let us now move on to part 2. Based on what you've learned so far, we will test you with a small activity. This is an individual or group activity and calls for self assessment. You are given the task of evaluating your own home. As an example, let us look at this lovely home here. So, what features do you observe here? How many stories and bedrooms does your home have? Which period does your home belong to? Is it a Georgian house? Is it an Edwardian house? Or is it a modern house? What are the materials used for its exteriors? Is it made of stones, ceramic tiles, concrete, or bricks. What kind of roof does your home have? Is it a flat roof or is it a steep roof? What materials is the roof made up of? Does your house have a garden or parking space? Does it have a garden only in the front or rear as well? Do you have a garage or do you have an allocated parking space? What materials are used for doors and windows? What color is it painted? Is it a single door? Is it a double door? How many panes does your window have? Now you can do the same with your homes after watching this webinar. You can also comment on any unique features that your home might have. Let us now move on to the last part. Part 3, which is engaging with the EcoFix challenge. The benefits of creating a mood board are numerous. By collecting pictures of designs and buildings you hope to draw inspiration from and assembling them into a mood board, you could get a sense of what direction you want to go in. Additionally, it will give you ideas for your own design. Here is an example of a mood board. You can even make small notes on it with the things you like or dislike about the pictures in order to help you with your design. Now take a shot at making your own. Here is the video courtesy. I trust that this webinar has been informative and has provided you with a better understanding of the evolution of housing over time, and I hope that you found this webinar to be insightful and engaging. We also understand that learning is a continuous process, and we are committed to providing you with more opportunities to enhance your knowledge. Therefore, we encourage you to keep an eye out for our upcoming webinars. Until then, I wish you all the very best as you take part in the EcoFix challenge. Thank you.